Okay, welcome everybody. Anne Hernandez, Brexpats in Spain, and I'm joined today by Victoria Westhead, who's our legal advisor. She's a British solicitor, but she'll be talking. We're continuing on from episode 4. This is now episode 5 because we've just done one. Sorry, episode 6. Judy's indicating fingers, showing how many fingers we are. It's 6. Okay, sorry, my mistake. But as promised in the last but one, let me just show you. You will find on our forum now, which is Brexpats, FAQs.info. I've prepared for you applying for your padron, applying for your residence, registering on the S1 system, and changing your British driving licence, with a few tips of how you can do it. So it's not impossible to do on your own. Some of it helps obviously if you speak the language, but it is not impossible, so you don't have to pay ridiculous amounts of money to solicitors like Vicky to do it. You can try. No, Vicky always does a good deal. She helps. Or obviously just speak to me and I'll do all I can to help you. Anyway, we're not wearing the same clothes another day. This is 5 minutes after our previous one because we've just had an interview with Euronews. So we've taken the opportunity for Vicky, who's come all the way down from Malaga to join us, to tell us today about wills and inheritance. So following on from our last one, which sadly talked about death, and Sharon explained the situation there and how Avalon will help. If you want a funeral insurance, please contact us and we'll put you in touch with Avalon. Also your medical insurance, our Deslas, making a wonderful deal at the moment. If you need it, get in touch with us. So Vicky, wills and inheritance, what can you tell us about it?
What we were saying before is nobody's sure what's happening with Brexit, but we're all sure that we're going to pop our clogs, aren't we, at some point?
Sadly, yes.
And whether or not that's in Spain or the UK, but certainly a lot of people on the British expats in Spain have assets still in the UK. They have assets in Spain, whether that be a property.
Sorry to interrupt.
Or bank account.
Judy's scoffing the mince pies, look, and the little
just floating
around. The little container is just blown in our direction.
We need to keep our energy levels up, don't we? So people have interest, assets dotted around, and even in Gibraltar, Jersey, which is different from the UK. But it's always recommended that wherever you have your assets, you make a will there. So you make an English will for your assets in England, and you make a Spanish will for your assets in Spain. So, for example, what costs you €250 to make a will in Spain saves you a good couple of €1,000 to sort it out if you don't have a will, to go through the intestacy procedures,
which is
you're talking about trying to translate an English will to use in Spain to legalise it.
Does that have to be apostille
They
stamp?
don't recognise trusts here. They don't really use executors like they use in the UK. To apostille stamp, and it can be very complicated. Where if you just had a Spanish will, you could just
present that
and
happy days,
basically. So it just makes the life of your beneficiary much easier to go through the process at the end of the day.
So again, thinking of those
like the funeral plan
that are being left behind, we are helping them. You're being a very caring, compassionate person to help them. So funeral plan in place, will in place. So what do they do about doing a will then? Let's assume you've got no property whatsoever in the UK. All your assets are here in Spain. What does one do? Because you can still have it written as per the British
You have to go
law.
to a notary.
Right.
In the UK, you can just write out a will
on the back of a piece of paper.
On the back of a cigarette packet if you want.
Yeah.
And then as long as you have 2 independent witnesses to sign it, then that's considered a valid will. But in Spain, you have to go to a notary. Usually you have a column in Spanish and a column in English, so people fully understand what they're signing. And also there was a change in August 2015 whereby prior to that date, if you passed away, then the law of your nationality would apply. So if you're a British national, then the English law would apply, which is freedom to dispose of your assets
Yeah, I was just
in
going to say,
whichever
can
way
you
you
explain
want.
what the difference is with the Spanish?
With the Spanish system, is that they come under forced heirship rules, which means you have to leave a certain percentage to your children. It's not like in the UK where automatically your assets go to your spouse if you die without a will, for example. But in Spain, you're forced to leave.
So you can't just leave it to the
you
cat's
can't
home.
leave it to the cat's home. It's a third in equal parts to your children. A third you can leave. You have to leave to at least one child, but it can be any proportion you like. And then the other third is free disposition.
So what if you have
your
no
assets.
children?
If you have no children, then it goes to your parents. If one of your
You have
parents
no
is
parents?
well, then you have free disposition in those
Then you can
circumstances.
choose to, in Spanish law, you can choose
Yeah,
who you want to
yeah,
leave it to.
yeah.
Okay. So it could be your next door neighbour or something if you've
Yeah.
got nobody in
But
your
then you've
life
got the
whatsoever.
high tax implications. So what was I saying about the changes? Well, now if you make a will, because we're post 17th of August 2015, this was on the back of a European regulation, which means that if you don't have a certain clause in your will stating which law you want to apply, so basically I want the law of my nationality to apply, then the law that will apply will default to where you're habitually resident. So if you decide to leave all your assets to the cat's home, but you haven't got this clause, then potentially, if you do have children, they could challenge it in those circumstances. So a lot of people, it's pretty widely known now, and a lot of people have gone back to change the wills. To insert the clause. Well,
So
they wouldn't change the will, they'd draft a new one, and that would supersede any former.
Wouldn't it?
It's definitely recommended, because you're talking about spending a few €100 for peace of mind, to know your beneficiaries are going to, receive what you wish to leave them.
And I mean, as Sharon mentioned in our last one, when we were talking about death and funerals, the authorities in Spain can freeze your bank account.
Yeah, and that's because they want to make sure that tax gets paid. Basically, so
Never mind, you've got money to live on.
No, it's so that to make sure that because within 6 months of that person passing away, the taxes, the inheritance tax needs to be
a joint account, can't
paid,
it?
and that can be even a joint
Which they don't do in the
account.
UK, I understand.
No, with the UK it's much more automatic to your spouse if you've got a joint bank
Or your
account.
eldest son, is it? Does that still apply in the UK? It goes to your oldest child or son?
Well,
or
that's
something?
next to whoever your next of kin is, effective. Well, the joint account will go to your spouse. I don't know about going to your. Yeah,
Okay,
sometimes you have to go through probate, other times you don't. Depends on the bank. Or
So in Spain, it doesn't automatically go
organisation.
to your spouse.
No.
But your
It's
spouse,
down and
I
up.
understand, has the right to reside in that home if they were
Yeah,
living with you
it's called
until
usufruct.
the day they then pass away
Usufruct.
themselves. But they never actually inherit the value of the property.
No, it's not.
They never
It's
they could never
never
will
be
it on
in
to
their
somebody
name,
else if
for
they
example.
remarried, for example. It would never be theirs.
No.
It would
no,
always be
because
their
it wouldn't
children's
be in
land.
their name.
It would be in the
So
child's.
they'd have the beneficial use, but not the title.
So
The
there
land
you see, you
registry.
need information like this because it's not how how the process is in the UK. It's very different.
Because in the UK we have a common law system, and here it's all governed by the civil code, and there's concept in the British law that, or the English law, because of course Scottish law is different again. So there's concepts such as trusts and executors, which, well, really doesn't fit in with the Spanish model. So you're trying to, squeeze it around stake into a square hole,
hole,
if you see
Yeah.
what I mean. And it doesn't always, it's always possible, but it makes life complicated and more expensive. So,
Okay, and doing a will here then, what would be the average sort of cost?
well, I charge €250,
Okay.
including the notary fees.
Including the notary
Including
fees.
the notary
Mhm.
fees, and I would give a discount for
our Brexpats members.
For members.
And you would accompany them to the notary?
Yes,
And go through it all,
yes,
because
go
someone has
through
to
it
interpret,
all,
don't they, etc.,
someone has to
etc.
interpret. It's pretty straightforward because you've got the column in English that they can follow, and yeah.
And then that has to be
and
registered somewhere, does it not?
That's registered. There's a central register in Madrid.
Mhm.
The notary will keep the original. You just go away with
A copy,
a
another
copy.
simply. Mhm.
copy simply, and then it gets put in into the central register in Madrid, which will then supersede any previous wills that you've made in Spain.
Can you, the same as in the UK, can you add to that or amend it?
Codicils, they don't really. It's not something that they really do in Spain. The best way is just to do a completely
Really?
new will
And that would
instead of.
that
No, I
would,
have
that
had
would
people come
overwrite
to
the
me.
previous one.
Yeah, I have had people come to me to say, "Can I just do a codicil for my Spanish will?" And
Yeah.
I have to say, "Well, really, they don't do that in Spain.
Uh-huh.
You just make a new will. You can make as many wills as you like at the end of the day.
But it's the most
So,
recent one that would count.
It's the most recent one, and you've got the security of knowing that's on a central register. Where in the UK, you can pop your will into a drawer.
Yeah. And,
You know,
and if you
no
haven't
one
told
might
anyone,
ever find it.
yeah.
Here you go to apply for Ultimas Voluntades and it will show your
So
your
it's
previous will.
far more controlled
It's
here
very
and much more
controlled.
prescribed. The
much
Spanish
more,
law.
Much more prescribed.
Yeah. It's not as flexible as the UK.
No, you have forced heirship rules that you have to adhere to. It does vary between Andalusia and other
Different regions.
autonomous regions, but in Andalusia certainly like the forced heirship rules.
So if you have property in Spain, you need to do a Spanish will, a will
It's
in
recommended.
Spain. Not a Spanish will, a will in Spain.
A will in Spain.
That can be written
It's
as
like
per
a-
the
yeah,
UK
it's-
law.
yeah,
And
that
if
can
you
be
have property
compliant.
still in the UK, you need to do a UK one,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, because you can both have the two. When someone passes away, the UK law can be sent to the probate office, and that can be dealt with. And at the same time, you can be dealing with the Spanish side instead of trying to use a will in a foreign jurisdiction, which
Yeah.
just makes life difficult. So,
How about if you do it intestate?
intestate in Spain, then, well, if you're habitually resident in Spain, then if you have children, then basically it would be in equal parts to your
But
to
I do
your
know it can
children.
take a long time for that to come through. If you're pending a property to sell or something, I've known of cases where it's taken anything up to 2 years to get this fully
Easy.
approved. That then those that have inherited can actually sell that property. And in the meantime, but in the meantime, who is
And if
going
they're
to
not
carry on?
habitually residents, and then they've got to go through the British probate
Yeah.
procedure, get granted probate that you're trying to use in
But
Spain.
let's assume a British person owns a property in Spain. They passed away. They didn't leave a will.
Yeah.
Okay. They have children in the UK who obviously are assuming they're going to inherit that property. It's going to take easily 2 years to sort that out.
Yeah.
In the meantime,
And
you
if
can't do
there's
anything with that
contested,
property.
it has to go through the courts. You're talking years and years.
Yeah, so who carries on paying community fees? Who carries on paying EB and Basura on that property?
Well, that's a good question.
And what about if it had a mortgage?
Well, the bank would probably foreclose in those circumstances, and then the remainder.
How long might they
would
leave
then-
it till until that
I
happens?
don't know. I'd
Again,
have to.
a long time.
Yeah.
So you can't do anything with that property in the meantime that
No.
you really have legally inherited
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
all of the
Yeah.
I's are dotted and the T's
They'd
are
all,
crossed
they'd all need. The beneficiaries would all need NIE numbers
as well.
as
which
well.
I might not have.
So
of course, in the meantime, you've not paid your electricity and water, so that's been cut off, and you've got a debt against it that they might not then necessarily chase for. But it's going to be there's an embargo going to be on your deeds, obviously. So that would have to be paid off at the time of solving it that you could sell it.
Yeah.
So you're
But
going
you'd
to
expect the beneficiaries to be paying it while it's all getting sorted out,
What if
because
they
otherwise
can't? What if they can't afford it?
Otherwise, it's going to cost them more money
Yeah, but then
at the end of the process.
And what if they can't afford it?
Well, I don't know. I've not come across that yet, but
I'm sure
I've had
people
people who just paid in the interim while things are getting sorted out.
In the hope that then it does get sorted out eventually,
So there's so many different scenarios.
I mean, a horrible situation. So what we're recommending is, if you own a property in Spain, do your will here.
Do your will
If
here.
you're British, you can write it as per the UK law.
And then if you've got assets in England, do your will in England. And also, there's quite a lot of people with assets in Gibraltar, bank accounts in Gibraltar. You can't use a normal grant of probate for that.
Offshore ones, no.
So you're talking about overseas British territories. An English grant of probate, they don't accept them. It has to go through a process called resealing, where it has to go through the court in Gibraltar or the court in Jersey to be resealed, which is a further cost and a further process. So there's all kinds of...
Talking about all of this though, Vicky, is this going to be dependent or changed depending on the outcome of Brexit, or is it already a fixed law and is unchangeable?
Well, the insertion of a clause in a will which states I want the law of my nationality to apply, that's not going to be affected by Brexit.
Right, that's not European Union, nothing at all.
Well, it's basically your assets in Spain and you're a British national, but we never signed, Great Britain never signed up to it anyway.
Okay.
So it's basically, you could be Chinese national with assets in Spain, American national with assets in Spain, so it's very unlikely to change. The only thing that could change is the level of tax payable. So at the moment, there was a court case in 2014 where Spanish residents and non-resident beneficiaries based in the UK, for example, were discriminated against. So, for example, non-resident beneficiaries, the tax system applied to them was the state rules rather than the rules of the autonomous community where the assets are based, and that the allowance for that is only around 16,000 euros. Anything beyond that, there's inheritance tax which needs to be paid, and now, well, since 1st of January 2017, we've got an allowance of €1 million. So basically, this court case held that it was discriminatory, and if you're a beneficiary from anywhere within the European Union and EEA, then the tax applied is of the autonomous community, not the state tax system. So, which is good for us now, but after Brexit that could change, and the beneficiaries become third country nationals, and the state, potentially the state tax rules will reapply again, potentially. So there was a case in February of this year where a Canadian national was ordered to pay 300,000 euros in inheritance tax, and she took the case to the Supreme Court, and it was held to be discriminatory against the Canadian national. So hopefully that gives us some hope that it won't be affected by Brexit, and this the tax system that applies will be inclusive of third country nationals as well, but it's not a binding decision, so we don't know. But that is one aspect potentially that could be affected by Brexit.
Another thing in limbo. Our life is spent in limbo.
But
30 months of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That really, when you start talking about the inheritance tax and a limit of inheriting 16,000
Yeah.
is really very low.
It's very low.
Very, very low compared to England or Britain.
Well,
that's
in
very
England
low.
it's 325,000.
Per person. And I have got a situation where when you've got two parents still alive, one
Yeah.
dies, you can either accept the 325,000 inheritance, or you wait for the partner to die, and you can then inherit the full 650,000 without paying any tax.
Yeah,
Inheritance
because
tax.
UK you've got an allowance between spouses.
Yes. So yeah, that is really rather good. What also concerns me is if you are inheriting something from, say, you've got family in England, an aged parent in England, and they die, but you receive the inheritance here in Spain, where it would be tax-free if you were inheriting it in England. Would you have to pay on the money you receive
If
here?
you're a resident in Spain, then you would have to declare it, but you have the allowance of 1 million if you're a direct descendant, for
Right.
example, or a spouse. But if you're not a direct descendant or a spouse or a close family member, then you would have to declare it in Spain and pay tax, even if the assets are in England. So
Which brings us neatly to the subject of this video, which is death and taxes are both inevitable.
exactly, Brexit we don't know, but
Well,
certainly
it is to a definite.
it's just the level of tax is the uncertainty, really, when it comes to Brexit. But
So
We'll
okay,
see.
so wills, inheritance.
get if you've got assets in Spain, do a will in Spain.
And if you want Vicky to help you,
I'll give you
message
a
us
discount.
or whatever, and Vicky will.
Yeah.
With,
And there's an
with
event
wherever
as well.
you are
I'm
as
doing
well.
an
on
event with a
Heritage.
Spanish firm in Malaga, Corte Inglés, on the 14th
Oh,
of
yes.
February. I think it's 7 o'clock, but I'll put something on the Facebook page. So
Yeah.
come along to that while you're doing
January,
your,
there's lots of events being sorted.
while you're shopping in Corte Inglés and getting your bargains. There's the Ambito Cultural in there. We'll
I
be
think the
there.
sales will have finished by
You'll be
then, won't
coming
they?
along,
Of
won't
course,
you?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll be there.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there, so come
Okay.
along and have a chat, and if you want Vicky
Yeah.
to help you, we're only worried amateurs, I must admit. Vicky is one of our experts, and obviously thank you ever so much, Vicky, for your
Oh,
help.
you're welcome.
And thank you for helping all of our members. If you've got any more questions or anything you want us to deal with, any subjects that you'd like us to tackle, please send into Facebook or to our Brexpats forum. I can't say that, it's so difficult.
So we're gonna
Richard,
have to
why did you have to choose that name? It's impossible.
We're going to have to see what happens over the next couple of days, won't we?
Indeed we will. Right, well, Vicky and I will be tomorrow doing a television programme. I believe it's an hour-long television programme.
An hour long?
I think so.
You didn't tell me that?
I didn't tell her that
God.
before, did I? Here in Malaga, and it goes out tomorrow evening at 9 o'clock if anybody wants to watch. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but at least we'll know what the result of tonight is. That much we will. You say an hour long. I went to do one in Marbella, and I thought it was just going to be the normal 5-10 minutes. What do you think about Brexit? Blah 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 blah. And they said it is a programme and it is an hour. You know. Excuse me. I hadn't anticipated that, but. You just get on with it and
Well,
do
we
it.
could talk, till the cows come home.
We could talk to the cows come home. Talking to the cows come home. I get up this morning, 8 o'clock this morning, think 3 days. I'll have a little bit of an easy morning, let's say. I'll see what's on the news. I'll have a look at a few Facebooks. I'll come and do the Euro News recording, interviews. And my telephone did not stop ringing, obviously. People saying, even Spanish people saying, have you heard? What do you think? What is going on here? So I arrived stressed and not late, but I arrived on time, but rushing. So now I'm going to have a little bit of a quiet 10 minutes. Perhaps we'll have a bite to eat, do you reckon? Because we've got time to kill now before we get on and do something later on. In the meantime, thank you ever so much. Don't forget, keep watching Brexpats in Spain.